Alright friends, welcome back, and I've been putting off making this video simply because for whatever reason the hair loss community is hyper sensitive about what works and what does not work. And so today guys, I wanted to make a mini map work kind of framework for how to stop hair loss and how to save your hair. Now again, please guys recognize that this video is just a basic outline, okay? This is not the end all be all for hair loss. If you have something that you like for hair loss that's not mentioned in this video, that does not mean that it's bad or that it's ineffective. If I mentioned something in this video that did not work well for you personally, that does not mean that it's bad or it's ineffective. I am just giving you the realities of hair loss. So that being said, guys, let's dive right in. So the very first thing, guys, is you first need to understand what true kind of hair loss is. So a lot of the problems with the hair loss community, and especially guys who hop on androgens, is they hear the words hair loss and they start to freak out because they touch their hair, they see one strand of hair on their hand, and now they think they're going to be balding, okay? The reality is you lose tons of hairs every single day, okay? If you've ever seen women typically have longer hair than men, but if you ever see a woman shower, you will see that oftentimes their drains get clogged, there's hair everywhere, and that is because, especially as your hair grows longer, you will lose a decent amount of hairs in a day. It is perfectly normal. So it's very important that you understand that hair loss day to day is normal. Now, the degree of which you're losing hair, that is something, that we need to discuss. So if you've just started a cycle and you're losing just tons and tons of hair, you've noticed that it's gone up, you've noticed that if you touch your hands to your hair, if you're using a hair catcher in the shower, your hair that you're losing is going up significantly, then you need to, figure out a strategy to kind of get on that, okay? Also, make sure to take pictures of your hairline. I think from like kind of the top up angle is probably the best. So you can track to see, if you're making gains or if you're losing potential progress. Those are going to be very, very important at helping, you to kind of recognize or see if you're losing hair or not. The other thing too you can do is have your hair examined by a specialist. Oftentimes they're very good at determining, if there's any sort of balding going on. I don't know why people are so anti-specialists in this space, but that can be very important. The second thing that I want to touch on before I kind of start with the outline for how to stop your hair loss that I think is so important is you need to start a hair loss prevention protocol as soon as you start to notice loss. Okay, I'm not saying fearmonger and think that because again you see one strand of hair fall out that you need to go start finasteride tomorrow, but I am saying that a lot of people will notice they're losing their hair, but they're in denial about it, or they're very scared to admit that they're losing their hair. They freak out and they just kind of panic and they freeze with fear. It is much harder to bring back and to save your hair later on than it is to do it sooner. So the sooner the better, and make sure you get on it as soon as you start to recognize there is an issue with your hair. With that being said, guys, let's dive into some very basic hair loss things that I think every guy should be doing. Now, before we get into this, it is very important to understand that hair loss is a multifactorial thing, okay? There's not one singular thing that causes hair loss. Hair loss can be multifactorial. So at the very beginning of everything, you want to make sure that your vitamin levels are optimized, okay? There's certain B vitamins like B12, there's things like iron, there's things like zinc, there's things like folate that all need to be at a good level and that need to be optimized for the safety and for the protection of your hair. So making sure that your vitamin levels are all good to go is going to be a very important starting point, and then you can just check that off so that you know. Versus if you have an issue with a vitamin deficiency that's potentially causing you to lose hair, you can go through, solve that vitamin deficiency first, potentially stop the hair loss, and then you can shut off this video, not have to do anything else in the video. The other thing that's very important is there's various other things like cortisol, like inflammation, like thyroid disruption, like, yes, I'll say it, DHT, that can potentially speed up hair loss or elicit hair loss. So it's very important that if you're starting to notice you have hair loss, that you get a full blood work panel that showcases things like your hormones, like your vitamin levels, that showcases things like your cortisol levels, your inflammation levels, your HbA1c, a full blood panel to take a look at everything and to kind of see okay, is there anything really weird on here that could be causing my hair loss? So that is step one. Take a look at your blood work and address any immediate issues on there. If your blood work looks perfect and you're in a spot where you're like, okay, my blood work looks really good, I have no immediate issues, I have no vitamin deficiencies, everything looks super solid, then we kind of move into the next phase of the protocol, which is to kind of clean up your lifestyle. Now, the single biggest, in my opinion, lifestyle factor that can just shred your hair like no tomorrow is going to be stress. There's a lot of people who, when they go through highly stressful periods of their life, whether it be a divorce or a highly stressful split up, have in fact noted that their hair loss was at the worst it has ever been. Even guys who were enhanced have said that, hey, when I was going through that breakup or when I was going through that divorce or when I lost my job, my hair loss was actually worse than it's ever been from androgens. And this is why it's so important that you guys understand that hair loss is a multifactorial thing, okay? So it's coming from a lot of different angles. It can be from, chronic inflammation, it can be from vitamin deficiency, it can be from stress, it can be from hyperthyroidism, it can be from a lot of different things. The important thing here is to make sure that your lifestyle is optimized. If you're going through a highly stressful time, you need to figure out a way to manage that stress, because it is more than likely, if your hair loss is in conjunction with that highly stressful time, that you are potentially losing hair from stress specifically. So it is very, very important and very, very crucial, okay, that you make sure that you have your stress under control, you're sleeping well, you're staying hydrated, your diet's good, and you're staying active, and you're at a healthy body weight, okay? Again, getting your lifestyle, especially your stress, locked in is going to be absolutely essential and absolutely crucial when it comes to making sure your hair is well taken care of and very protected. A lot of guys underplay and downplay how big stress can be on your hair, and I've had it happen to me myself. I have typically pretty good hair genetics, but when I've been very stressed out, it has typically led to me to experience more shedding and more kind of hair loss, which can, of course, be problematic. So now let's, again, we're setting the scene here. I did this with the skincare video. Let's say that you've done all these things and you're still experiencing hair loss, okay? So you've done all those things, you're still experiencing hair loss. Let's talk about now what you can do as kind of first steps for a hair loss protocol. In my opinion, my first steps for a hair loss protocol would be something like a Nizoral-based shampoo. I would get it from Intelligent Elephant, their shampoo and conditioner. And I would also do minoxidil plus tretinoin plus derma rolling the scalp, okay? This is a very, very benign protocol that I think is very tolerable for most people. Most people have no issues with this protocol. It's not going to be super expensive. It's going to be affordable for most people. Essentially, the tretinoin and the derma rolling is going to help to make the minoxidil work more efficiently and effectively to help your hair grow and to help put your hair in an optimal position to grow in a healthy way. And then the Nizoral shampoo is going to have those slight kind of anti-androgenic effects to block out some of the hair loss. Again, this is a starting point, and this is where these protocols, it is so important to understand that, again, this is like stage one. If you can stop your hair loss with this, fantastic. If you cannot, you're going to need to use something stronger, and that is just kind of the reality. I think it's also important to kind of discuss that there are certain compounds that are very good at growing your hair, but there's certain compounds that is kind of all they do. So the issue with someone taking minoxidil, and I posted a reel about this the other day, is they were saying, well, minoxidil is very good at growing your hair. It can even help new hair follicles grow in, which is great. But if you're still losing your hair at a rapid rate, essentially you're just hitting net zero, because your hair is growing faster, yes, and maybe you're even getting some new hairs from the minoxidil, but you're still losing a bunch of hairs every single day. So you need to have a strategy that promotes both hair growth and that stops the loss, okay? So those are going to be kind of my starting points when it comes to hair loss protocols. Now, again, there is so many things that you can do for hair loss, right? Metformin topically can be great for hair loss. Melatonin topically, great for hair loss. Rosemary topically, great for hair loss. Caffeine can be great for your hair. There is a lot of things that you can do, and I could talk on and on and on and on about all the different potential medications that are great topically for your hair, or the potential herbs that are great topically for your hair. But again, I want to keep this video somewhat focused and somewhat concise, but please do note that there is a lot more than I'm just discussing in this video. Now, if you tried to use, the Nizoral shampoo and it did not work for you with the minoxidil, I would then add in either RU58841 or the pyrolumatide. I think I'm saying that right. It starts with a P. I would add in one of those. Now, pyrolumatide has been approved for human usage. I believe those approved for acne. I might be wrong on that. RU58841 has not been approved. I have tried both myself personally, and I found that they're very similar. If you look at anecdotes online, you see some people really like the pyrolumatide or pyrolumatide. Again, I struggle to say that, and some people really like RU58841. I probably would lean into pyrolumatide just because it is approved in humans, again, even if not for hair loss. But basically what these are is they're going to be topical anti-androgens that are designed to be a bit more selective than your finasteride or your dutasterides, and they're going to help to block hair loss on the scalp. Now, I do think finasteride and dutasteride are going to be stronger than these medications, but I think these medications, the RU58841 and the pyrolumatide, are a good middle ground. It does seem like, from what we've seen, that they have a bit less of a side effect profile than something like finasteride, but at the same time, they do seem to maybe be a bit weaker. But there are a lot of people who have had tons of success with these more selective topical anti-androgens, okay? So this would be the next step up that I would add into the previous protocol, is I would add either RU58841 or pyrolumatide. Again, for me, they were virtually the same. Other people have their preference. Pyrolumatide is approved for human usage. So that is important, I think, in kind of discerning which one is going to be, a bit better and a bit more effective. Now, again, with these, just because something is potentially selective on paper, because the goal of these compounds is to make a anti-androgen that is selective purely for the scalp and does not go systemic, some people do get weird effects from these, side effects from these, whether people say they're, placebo or not, I don't know, but there are people I know who have gotten some weird kind of heart rhythm-based side effects from some of these. There's some people who swear they've gone systemic and they've caused them some low DHT issues. So do keep that in mind, but I do think for the most part, these do seem to be a bit more tolerable than finasteride or dutasteride. I say that very, very cautiously though, because again, especially something like RU58841, we still need a lot more data, and the reality is that there's more data on finasteride or dutasteride. So now I will be making the kind of nuclear part of this video where everyone's gonna freak out, because this is one of the most debated and controversial topics in the space, and that is going to be, should you use finasteride or should you use dutasteride or should you not? Now, if you don't understand this debate, there's essentially a condition known as post-finasteride syndrome, which people have had their lives essentially ruined by finasteride, and there's people on the internet who think the condition is not real or blown significantly out of proportion, and there's a lot of people who have used finasteride, have had a fantastic experience, and have no complaints. They've saved their hair, and, they've been very, very happy with it. Now, the reality is, okay, with finasteride and dutasteride, when we look into the data, is it possible that post-finasteride system exists? I think yes. I never like to discredit people's personal experiences, but on the whole, most people seem to respond well or with minimal side effects to finasteride and to dutasteride. Again, dutasteride is going to be more effective than finasteride, as it's blocking more of the 5-alpha reductase enzymes. But again, just the reality is there is a lot of people who use it and have no issues, and there is a small group of people who use it and get this post-finasteride syndrome issue, right, where they have sexual dysfunction, they mentally can't function, they have all of these issues. And so again, I'm not going to even entertain this debate in this video because, I don't want to get into it. I think people get overly emotional about it. But I will say that if your goal is to stop hair loss, finasteride and dutasteride are going to more than likely be, with minoxidil, your most effective options available on the market. And it's the same reality I tell people when it comes to something like Accutane. I'm not saying that you use it, by the way. I'm saying that if preserving your hair and if protecting your hair is your ultimate end goal, then these are going to be things that I think you should look at. And we have tons of medical data, on these compounds. So before you do it, talk to a specialist, do your research, look into it first. But I will say, in terms of pure effectiveness for hair loss, these are probably going to be your most effective options and kind of your nuclear options, okay? So again, make yourself aware with the post-finasteride community, look into the data yourself, talk to the specialists, understand both sides of the argument, and go from there. Again, I never make blanket statements on if a drug is good or bad, but I do like to be realistic, and it's the same thing when I tell guys for acne, the best thing is probably Accutane. I like to be realistic when I say that these are going to be your two most effective options when it comes to saving your hair. The final part of this video I wanted to do is I wanted to discuss a little bit of cycle-based framework for helping to protect and preserve your hair. I've noticed anecdotally there is a few different things with cycling that can really take out the hair. And again, this is another topic that is extremely debated, but the reality is if I have a client whose hair gets shredded by Primo, or his hair gets shredded by Masteron, or his hair gets shredded by a high level of testosterone, I'm going to report that, and I've seen that. It seems like DHT compounds, and again, hair loss is multifactorial, are typically going to be some of the more problematic ones like Masteron, like Primo, like Winstrol, when it comes to your hair loss. It seems that things like 19-nors are going to be, especially like nandrolone, are going to be less problematic for your hair loss, okay? And then it also seems like things like growth and insulin are going to be less problematic as well. You could even argue that growth is going to help your hair to grow. So when it comes to cycle design, those are a few things to kind of keep in mind. Again, if you are choosing to be an enhanced bodybuilder, you are choosing to risk your hair, okay? But at the same time, hair loss is multifactorial, and we have tons of options available for hair loss. So to simply say that you're destined to go bald is not true. All right, guys, with that being said, I hope this video was helpful. Again, this was a very basic outline and a very basic guideline for you guys to understand hair loss and kind of, how to begin to start to attack hair loss, my kind of thoughts on finasteride. If you guys want more biohacking content, head over to my website, biohackingu.com. Make sure to comment, like, and subscribe. And until next time, guys, have a good one.